Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 98 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we have probably one of the best guests we've ever had on this show, and I am so excited to hear what he has to say as Kenny Wallace. You know him, you love him, longtime NASCAR driver, TV personality on Fox Sports and Speed Channel. He'll join us coming up just a moment. We'll have our news and notes segment, Ask David, and more coming up at the end of the show as well. Before we bring in Kenny, real quick, David Starr joins us as always. David, you had a pretty eventful week. I'm pretty jealous. You didn't take me to the Chiefs game Sunday. What a game that was.
Man, that was an incredible game. You know, everybody was on the nervous, and, man, it came down to the end. But, hey, thank God our Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. So it was a pretty awesome weekend, awesome game. And it all turned out the way all the people I was around wanted it to turn out. You know, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and but I wore a little red and supported the people that invited me. So it all worked out.
Yeah, sounds like you had a great time. Dominic Aragon from Racing Experts.com is here with us as well. Dom, our next guest, Kenny Wallace. You know, I'll say this, and just hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but you know, Kenny here, I remember more from his TV time in a good way. Just every week, all the personality this guy brought, the scene of the NASCAR race day days and everything on Speed. I mean, if you were a diehard NASCAR fan like you and I growing up, Dom, I mean, Kenny, you couldn't turn on the Speed Channel without Kenny being on there.
Oh, exactly. Growing up as a fan of the sport and watching those race day shows Sunday morning, I'm like, wait, he's a race car driver and an analyst? That is pretty cool. That left a pretty cool impression on 10-year-old Dominic. But when I asked Kenny if he'd come on our show earlier this month, he said, heck yeah, he was going to come and do it. And I've known Kenny about a good 10, 11 years. And back when we had the Racing Experts podcast, TRE Live, he was our first guest in 2010. Long before everyone and their mother and David Starr had a podcast, Kenny Wallace came on our show. And we're really happy Kenny came on, and he's this week's guest. Let's Go Racing with David Starr. And Kenny, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thank you very much. Yep. I'll never forget Darrell Waltrip once said, he goes, you know, I won 3 Winston Cup championships, and I'm a race car driver. He says, but all anybody wants to talk about is me being on that cartoon movie. They didn't know that he was a race car driver. So I learned right away that there's definitely a generation gap. And I really am thankful for everything that's come my way. That TV, Speed TV, Fox, it saved my career, made it to where I could get sponsorship and I could continue to race. So TV was good for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you were good for the sport, man. Just man, you're a hell of a race car driver, and man, it was amazing. You know, when your audience, man, you just brought another element to it. A lot of excitement, and you know, you talked about things that you know most of the commentators then couldn't really explain. And but man, it was amazing to have that opportunity. But it was cool to be able to race and do television at the same time. You know. What was that like? You know, how did you? It's weird to take off one hat, put on another, but you did it, man. You did it like you was a pro at it.
Well, you know, I think I grew. You know, I'm 59. I'm much older than you. I grew up watching, you know, Ned Jarrett, Benny Parsons, Neil Bond. These were great race car drivers, wow. And you know, they did both. They were good at both. And then it started sticking. You know, where I think John Force had something on sponsored by Fram oil filters at the time. And right. I saw that. And, you know, there was a part of me, David, that said, you know, man, if I do TV, that will dilute, you know, people taking me serious as a race car driver. But then all of a sudden it just stuck where, hey, if you do this TV stuff, these sponsors really like it. And they would sponsor me because I was on TV. So I got used to it, and you know, they let me race on Saturdays when it was the Xfinity series, and then I'd spend the night, and then we'd get up Sunday and do, you know, NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot, and then they'd say, well, Kenny, you were on that racetrack yesterday. And so, it just kind of all worked, it really did.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
You had a long career in NASCAR.
So let me ask you this, Kenny. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Kenny. When you look back on all of your accomplishments, from the racetrack to the TV side and just everything, what is it that you're most proud of yourself? What do you look back when you think of yourself, Kenny Wallace? What do you think of, Kenny?
Well, I've had time to think about that now. I would definitely say my longevity in the sport. We ran 905 races. I still have the most starts in the Xfinity series at 544 races. I'm still the leader in that. And then we ran 344 or 340 something cup races, 12 truck races. I remember those numbers because my last year in 2015, they did something really nice for me. They printed it all up, and it was a big decal, and they put it on the ground in front of my garage area. And I looked at it, and I would say that is what I'm most proud of. We were able to get 9 Xfinity wins. Listen, it's like I tell people, there's no secret that we all wanted to be a Jeff Gordon, and I only had so much talent, but just enough talent to keep me in the game that long. So I would say what I'm most proud of is my longevity. I was there forever, and I was probably a B+ or A- Xfinity driver, but I was a C something cup driver, and just able to stay there. And and the key is I got my own sponsors all the time, because I could run my mouth. I'm hyper, but I'm happy. So that's not a secret either.
Yeah.
I was able to stay there because I was able to bring the money, and I think those are the things that I'm most proud of.
Well, and all the competitors you raced against, and going back to 1988 to as recent as 2015, you definitely raced on the track with this guy. So what are some David Starr memories? And we always tell our guests too, tell us the good, the beautiful, the bad, the ugly. What's it like to race against David on the track, and what immediately comes to mind?
He's kind of like me. He's overly nice. That's it. Always smiling. I mean, that smile you see right there, it's 24/7, and always said hi to me. And great race car driver, and been in the game a long time. So when I think of David, I think of a winner. I think of somebody smiling all the time, and just grinds it out like I did. He's a grinder.
Yeah. So Kenny, I appreciate that. This is my 25th year this year. And man, I just hearing you talk, man, I remember as, teenager kid watching TV, watching Kenny Wallace and Rusty Wallace and Mike Wallace. Man, that was unheard of. You saw Kyle Petty and Richard Petty and Davey Allison and Bobby, but man, but the three brothers was incredible, and just hearing you speak about your career, hearing you talk and you rating yourself, but man, as I remember it, man, you were always, you were tough in the cup side. You were up there. I want to say Dale Earnhardt won 2 or 3 races because Kenny Wallace helped him, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that was, because you helped him. I remember in Victory Lane and hearing Dale Earnhardt Sr. speak, and he said, Kenny Wallace, I wouldn't have won this race. It wasn't for, Harmon. And I don't know, I asked the question, you helped him because you finished second, but man, you had a hell of a cup career. I just remember you being super competitive. I don't remember how many races you won, but man, just as good as your brother Rusty was. You were competitive, very competitive, and your brother Mike, Mike, I remember Mike. I don't know how many races he won, but man, I remember him driving the 12 or the Penske car, and man, he was a force to be reckoned with. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but you guys were good, and man, you don't stay at the NASCAR level for all the years you stayed at, just because you're a damn good spokesperson and you do well for all the sponsors and you're good for the sport and you're great for television and all that, there's got to be talent, you know what I mean? And the people you raced against, Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Darrell Waltrip and on and on and on, man. I think it was stacked even more than it is today, but man, you were, in my eyes, you were the man, dude, so, and I know you're being humble, but man, you don't race that many races at that level if you're not one of the all-time best race car drivers. It just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So I think you're a little bit humble about it, but as I can remember it, man, you were damn good.
Thank you. Good. I appreciate that. Well, my rookie year in the Cup Series, it was a hell of a rookie class. It was Jeff Gordon, Bobby Labonte, and me. And,
oh my God!
Yeah, so it was it was one of the wildest rookie of the year classes ever. And but yeah, I mean, when I look back on my time, I remember, like yesterday, Richard Petty, racing Atlanta, racing his last race, and then Jeff Gordon running his first race, and it's just crazy to think that it's all over right now. And I see that, out of other athletes, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, what do you mean Jeff Gordon isn't racing anymore? What do you mean Dale Earnhardt Jr. is not racing anymore? It's like I was older and I looked at them as kids and now they're retired. And it is true, but I must say, when you look at that era, a little bit before me, Harry Gant went to, 50, 52 years old. And then, David, all of a sudden, I guess about, not 10 years ago, there come that new era where all the drivers started retiring at 42, 43. I mean, Tony Stewart, Jeff Burton, Bobby Labonte, these guys at it was literally 42, 43 years old. And I said, wow. But yeah, I don't know. I still to this day love racing. I race all the time. I mean, I ran the most dirt races this year. I ran 74 dirt races, and I think I love it because I work on my own race cars. I'm a fabricator, mechanic. I was a crew chief in 1984 for Joe Ruttman on the Levi
That's
Garrett
amazing,
car.
Man. Ruttman.
Ain't that crazy?
Man.
Yeah, and then I didn't start racing I didn't start racing until I was 22. You know what I mean? Started dirt racing at 41. So I was way late. I was really late on everything. But yeah, so I mean, my career was not normal. And I think, because I started racing so late, I loved, helping Rusty and Mike and fabricating, and, TV found me. I always knew I was going to be a race car driver. That was no doubt.
Right.
I was going to make myself one come hell or high water, and started out in ASA and then eventually made it to NASCAR.
It's amazing. One of the things I wanted to ask you, again, I don't have all your statistics in front of me, but I know you've won lots of NASCAR races, Xfinity, Cup. But, I think, my question is, you wasn't driving for Junior Johnson and Roger Penske and Hendricks. I asked Kenny Wallace if you had the opportunity then to drive for those powerhouse teams, you would have had a lot more wins, I think. I think, you talk about Jeff Gordon, these other greats of our sport, and, you look at what they stepped into when they came into it, and they had a lot of talent, some of the all-time best drivers, but they really had great crew chiefs, a great organization behind them with plenty of funding, so I asked the question, if you would have been a Roger Penske organization or Rick Hendricks, you would have had a lot more wins. Your thoughts on that?
I'm at peace with myself now, because when Steve Park got hurt, I got in the Pennzoil car relief for Steve. And we set quick time at Rockingham. We led that whole race and got beat on a short pitting. Joe Nemechek, Andy Petrie pitted Joe in that Oakwood mobile homes car he was driving at the time. He pitted him probably 10 laps before us, and Rockingham would grind the tires up.
Oh, so,
Andy pitted him, and, we pitted later, and, they threw the checker flag. But, that week was pretty incredible. I hated that Steve got hurt, but got in the Pennzoil car, set quick time run second in the Cup race. And the day before, we won the Xfinity race, and that was a hell of a week. But, I'm answering your question. I'm just saying that when I look back, I really wouldn't take anything back. But when I did get in a good car, I did perform, and that's what does happen. That's why I'm at peace now. I'm not bitter. I'm not upset. Do I wish I would have got it? I wished I could have stayed in that Pennzoil car, but Steve Park convinced him that he was okay and ready to come back. And damn it, Yeah.
Love you, Steve, but man, let me drive a couple more months, man.
Right.
Well,
right.
Absolutely, man.
And that wasn't the only big fill-in opportunity you had. I remember when you filled in for Kurt Busch. In 05. You
crazy.
Went from the race day set, right? To strap it in, trying to figure that all out real fast, right?
Actually, I'm glad you said that, because that is an incredible story. We're sitting there on that Sunday morning. Now, I just got done running an Xfinity race on Saturday night. So the next day, we're doing the big show. And it's a little controversial. And all of a sudden, you got those earpieces in. And my producer says, Kenny, Jack Roush wants to talk to you. And I keyed my button. I said, I ain't talking to Jack Roush. I didn't say nothing bad about him. and we go to commercial break. We come back and they said, no, Kenny, it ain't about TV. You need to talk to Jack Roush. And all of a sudden, somebody brings me a phone on the set during commercial break. And Jack Roush goes, Kenny Wallace, do you want to drive the 97 Crown Royal Cup car today? I'm like, hell yes. So, jump off the TV set. And, oh, my gosh, I'll never forget it. Karen Facing, she did a lot of running for us. She made it easy on us. So we take the golf cart, we go through the tunnel at Phoenix, and we get to the garage area, and there must have been 1,000 people, because, that's when Kurt got in trouble with the law. And, they fired him for that day. And I think that was probably his last race. But anyway, I get in the car, and man, I thought I was skinny. That kid, I couldn't hardly fit in that damn thing. And I'm doing everything. I'm like, okay, it's all good. And then when I left, I grabbed, I don't think it was Jimmy Finney, the crew chief. And I said, Jimmy, take a porta power. When everybody clears out, I said, spread that seat open 2 inches. So I run around the pits, and I get Greg Biffle's uniform. I get Rusty's helmet and his earplugs. Well, so they start me last, and I can't drive a car as loose as he had it. So they had a rubber in the right rear, a rubber in the right rear spring.
Take it out.
And we stayed on the lead lap the whole damn race, and never got lapped. And towards the end of the race, Jimmy took that rubber out of the right rear and stuck it in the left rear, and that was it, baby. Here the hell I come. And I didn't finish as good as I want, but I got up to 16th. We let the race go too long, and tried closing the stagger up and wedge and this and that, but it was just too much rear spring split for me. Yeah. And so yes, you're right. That was some. I was proud of that run too. And then they let me drive it again the very next week to end the year at Miami Homestead. And I don't know where I finished, but none of it was bad. Yeah. It was good, just jumping in a strange man's car. And
that seat didn't fit you.
Yeah, there was some crazy stories along the way, but I hurt I was so sore after that race I could hardly walk because like my ass, was not right.
Ass massage, Kenny.
So I have to ask you, you have those two good
That was a
races.
crazy deal.
You bring the
Wow.
car back home in one piece in those two races. I mean, how much, I guess, new life does that breathe into you heading into that off season? And are you talking with Jack Roush? Hey, put me in the car for 06.
Somebody now I'm not great. I'm not degrading myself, but I've had some quality people at that time said Kenny Wallace is a super sub. He's the best sub driver in NASCAR, and I really, now that it hurt when they said it back then, but now I agree with it. I mean, you had great race car drivers, man. And like David says, only so many good cars. So, back then you didn't have powerhouse teams. Okay. So in other words, like Joe Gibbs got 3 or 4 cup cars now, Richard Childress got 3 or 4. So back then they only had 1 or 2, maybe. Maybe. And if you had 3, that was big. So it was very hard back then, to get into one of those cars because there wasn't as many. So when I look back on it, I got a couple of opportunities. I capitalized on them. But in the end, it still didn't, come to fruition where I was, tabbed the driver. And like I say, now that I'm older, it's all okay. And I'm living my best life right now. I really am. I'm having a really good time.
Good.
Let me ask you
So,
this.
Kenny,
I'll jump in real quick, David, then go ahead after
go ahead.
this.
You're good.
I think you mentioned about sponsors, the TV thing. What about just representing the brands you did? I think we remember, when you took the Aaron's Dream Machine to the Daytona 500, or of course, all the Stacker 2 commercials over the years, Jegs. We mentioned your role with Speed and Fox and everything. What was it like to just be an ambassador and represent those brands and those companies in the role you did in such a positive way?
So I was always in survival. No, I don't want this to come across negative, but I was always in survival mode. So you have to remember, I was young. And I thought, oh, my God, I'm going to be poor. I'm going to live under a bridge in a cardboard box. And, everything was survival. In other words, my job was to always give the team money. And, I can remember when I decided to retire in 2015, I was literally in the shower. And I mean this humbly. I thought to myself, holy crap, I have a lot of money saved. But I feel broke because I was living my life through that race car. I was always having to go get money and give all of it to the team. And it was, although it looked good and I liked the way you said it, yes, I could get sponsorship. But the problem was if I did not get it, I wasn't going to race. So a lot of it was survival mode, and you're right. I did a lot of national TV commercials. And every year I went to the Daytona 500 in the Cup Series. There was only a handful of times that I was going to be in the Daytona 500, but every single time was just complete devastation. I think a couple times, when I drove that gold 00 Aaron's car, I made the race. I was coming off a turn 4 to the checkered flag, and I had to pass, I think, Kerry Earnhardt maybe. And he was in a good car. And it was for like 5th or 6th. We were wadded up, and I passed him before the trial and made the Daytona 500. And there was just too much of that. It was exhausting. And to this day, I tell my wife, I said, man, these son of bitches got it easy now. They're locked in. They don't got to qualify. It's a friend.
They have no idea.
Oh, they have no idea, man. And back then I cheated death when I qualified those damn Cup cars.
Yes.
You go down and turn 1 at 220 miles an hour, that thing's wanting to step out, and you can feel it yaw it out. And you're like, I'm going to die. And you just stay in the gas. And, you'd make the race, and it's like, oh God, it just never ended. It was just never ended.
But one of the
Yeah.
final Daytona 500s you've attempted was with Furniture Row Racing. And I mean, do you take, I guess, or maybe a little bit of pride in the fact that you were their first driver? They went on to win the 2017 champion, but in 2005, you were their first driver, and you made the Daytona 500 with them in 2008 with your teammate, Joe Nemechek.
Yeah, I'll shorten that story up real quick. So, what was Joe's name? I forgot his last name. The crew chief. So anyway, the Furniture Row team, I was racing the Xfinity cars, driving for the Gould's Pump, and we'd set quick time out there. We run third in the race, and they wanted me to come to their shop downtown Denver, Colorado. I did, and they had a huge shop, and they wanted me to become their first Cup driver. Jerry Roberts was their first driver, but they wanted me to, run. I was their second driver, really, but a lot of people didn't realize Jerry, had run their late model around, the local tracks there. But, I drove that car. I drove that Furniture Row car, and told them a couple things that were wrong with it. I told them their motor program was no good. They didn't like to hear that. They fired me about halfway through the year. They hired 3 drivers. They all missed the races. Sterling Marlin, Scott Wimmer. Then they got Nemechek. So anyway, the reason I say that is because they call me up and they apologize. And they say, to show you how bad we feel for letting you go, blaming that on you when it was really our motor program and we just weren't up to speed. We'd like for you to run a second car at the Daytona 500, but here's the catch. I said, okay. They said, we're going to have Joe Nemechek's car and your car. If Joe misses the race and you make the race, you got to let Joe get in the car. And I said, okay. Well, it was easy to start. Joe qualified second for the Daytona 500. He's locked in the front row. I don't qualify very good, but the twin 125 comes along, and here we come, buddy. And hell, I'm running third on the last lap and ended up fifth. And, that was just, another one of those situations where, when you're a kid, you just want to shove it square up their butt and go, see, I told you. But it was just, it put me at peace, because everybody saw, everybody, you don't got to go around the garage here and go, see. But after that, they won the championship with Martin Truex, I don't know, 8 years later. Right. But, like they said, they spent a record amount of money. They wanted to prove to everybody that they could do it from Denver. And I think Joe told me they spent an extra $6 million trucking things back and forth and paying for people's apartments. And they paid the price. And in the end, Barney Visser said, I'm out. He got what he wanted, but he paid the price. And we're dear friends to this day. It was a moment in time, but yes, that is a short story made for Hollywood or ESPN. But it was the start of Furniture Row and how it ended. And Barney Visser, the owner, a great man, a religious man, but come hell or high water, they were going to run that team out of Denver, and it was very, very expensive, but they won the championship with Joe Gibbs's help. A lot of money spent with Gibbs, and but yeah, that was as you can tell, it was very easy for me to remember. And the story, I know the accurate story, and it was a good story.
That's a great story, Kenny, because you hear stories like that, and when they know that they are wrong, they usually don't come back and try to correct it. It says a lot about the character and the way these people are to call you back and say, hey, we were wrong. And not only we were wrong, we want to give you another opportunity and then put you in the Daytona 500. That's amazing. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, I knew that your dad and your older brother, Rusty, that I knew you were a hands-on guy. Most of us that grow up around in the business, nobody gives you anything. You learn it just because that's what you do. You build A-frames, you you change your ratio, ring and pinions, you work on race cars, you know, camber, caster, toe bumps, you know, just all of it. And man, to see you and Kenny Schrader, what y'all do since you've stepped out of the NASCAR side, you guys, y'all are just really good for auto racing in general, because man, y'all travel, like you said, you've run the most dirt races, most races probably anybody in the world. But man, all the kids, the young kids and the girls and young kids that race, you know, I think you being out there and seeing how hard you race and winning races and seeing, you know, Kenny Wallace, I'm just seeing you at a racetrack's a big deal. You know, it's a NASCAR driver and all your successes and everything you've done. And to see you at a 3/8 mile dirt track in freaking Peoria, Kansas or Iowa or wherever, you know, and then you said it earlier, you work on your race car, you fabricate it, you drive it to the racetrack. When people think about Kenny Wallace, Rusty Wallace, Mike Wallace, they don't look at it that way. You know what I mean? When you drive your truck and trailer into the racetrack, unload it, win races, fix it, set it up, it really inspires these young kids. And I think over the years, you know, you've seen a lot of these kids, man, I like to talk chassis and setups, and even today, Kenny, in the garage, you know, when we got some downtimes, you know, I'm over talking to the bigger teams and the drivers about, hey man, you know, bump stops and you know, just chassis talk, you know, and a lot of them, they don't understand what I'm saying. They can't talk to me because they don't know, you know, and I think, man, that's nuts. You don't know about, you know, bump stops and pigtailing and wedge, and I mean they have no clue, and it's blown me away over the years, and you know, and you understand what I'm talking about. But Kenny Wallace going to a local dirt track, a 3/8 mile dirt track, wherever in the country, you pull in that racetrack, unload your race car, work on it, race it, fix it. Man, it really inspires our youth, the future racers of America, whether they make it to NASCAR or not. You know, I think what you do and how you do, I think it really educates young racers on how it needs to be done, you know. And if you're fortunate enough that you have the means, or your parents have the means, or grandparents, where you pay everybody, it makes a better race car driver when you know how to build a race car, when you understand the springs and shocks and how the race car works. And I really think, you know, just your experience and everything you've done, and then what you do today really inspires, and it makes auto racing better just because of your knowledge and how you work.
Well, thank you very much. I think that everybody needs somebody. I don't think any race car driver stands on top of the car and goes, I did it all myself. I was poor. You know, I lived in a creek, you know, that don't happen. Everybody needs help. We all needed help. But, you know, fast forwarding to your comment about me dirt racing, you know, I had a lot of shortcuts because I found myself 22 years old and not even racing. And my brother Rusty, you know, gave me a lot of knowledge, you know, and I immediately went asphalt racing. Well, when I got, you know, towards the end of my NASCAR career, I said, boy, I really want to learn how to race dirt cars, because AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, they'd run the Indy 500, and then they'd go an hour down the road to, you know, the Terre Haute, Indiana, Terre Haute action track. And, you know, when you look at AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, and all those guys, whether it's Dale Sr., you know, they could do it all. They could race asphalt, they could run road courses, they could run dirt. And I found myself, all I'm doing is running asphalt. I just run asphalt. And I wanted to try dirt. And so I started trying it, and I wasn't very good at it. You know, so I felt like it was a video game. I just had to keep trying, you know, keep trying. And got very competitive at it. And, you know, and then when I was doing it, I had one employee, you know, always paying that employee, you know, $50 grand a year, you know, spending a couple $100,000 on the dirt car. And now over the last 5 years, I'm just not willing to do it. I got older and couldn't get any help. So I had to go do it all myself. And but you mentioned one thing that is true. About 5 years ago, people started seeing me just show up at the racetracks with me and one other guy, and me always driving the truck and trailer, you know. And then it seemed like they all calmed down. Until then, they thought I was bringing in, you know, the fans nicknamed it on a lower level. They said that Wallace got that NASCAR money, you know, and that became very popular. And I went with it.
Yeah.
But you know, you have to earn a lot of these great racers' respect. But when they see you doing it all just slowly calmed down and it stopped. There's a price to pay, you know, you're doing good at anything. And you know this, if you have a good business and you're making money, you know, a lot of your local friends get mad at you. I mean, it's like that in anything. So going and running dirt, David, it was fun. And yes, I put a lot of attention on dirt racing because of Speed TV. You know, they'd say, what are you doing this weekend? I said, I'm going to Lakeside, Kansas. And, you know, and boy, you know, it was big. Those racetracks would call me up. So I did shine the spotlight on all these local tracks because I was on Speed TV then. And it took me a long time to, you know, bring some of these great competitors. You know, I once had a great race car driver named Jonathan Davenport. He mentioned one time, he goes, Herman, you don't need any money. I'm like, you're right. I don't, but you know, I'm looking for respect. And
Yes.
And I earned that and I got it. So yeah, that's a multi, you know, everything you said was a mouthful and there's so much involved in that, you know.
Absolutely.
We got time for about one more question before we need to move on to news and notes. Dom, go ahead and wrap us up, and we'll go to news and notes here.
Yeah, Kenny, you were mentioning earlier about 900 and some National Series races that you've run off the top of your head. How many of them do you think you can recall or remember the details, or how many of those races do you think you remember?
Well, you know, listen, I'm not a cliche guy like Darrell Waltrip whatsoever. However, I remember all my wins and I remember all the bad times. All the rest in the middle, you know, listen, we had some great races that weren't wins, you know, but I remember, you know, I mean, like I said, I remember all my Xfinity wins and poles, but you know, I remember the worst, you know, going down the back straightaway at Loud, New Hampshire, you know, and breaking the rear end out, you know, turn 3 at Loud, New Hampshire. That's where Kenny Irwin got killed, Adam Petty got killed, and you know, turn 3 there, you know, it's got that drop off, you know, elevation drop.
Yep.
And I broke a rear end right there, trailing arm, spun around, hit my head. 1991,
Wow.
hit my head on the B pillar of the car, A pillar, B pillar, bam. Because 91, we didn't have the Hans or nothing.
Right.
And they told me, they said, Kenny, get out of the car and just lay down right here. We wait for the ambulance. Next thing I knew, I thought I was at home sleeping. And I woke up and I was, you know, I had a positional vertigo, a concussion. That changed the trajectory of my life because I was leading the championship over Bobby Labonte. I lost it because I couldn't race the next race. So, you know, when you say, what do you remember? I remember the good and the bad, you know, and the stuff in the middle is just kind of all in there.
I like it.
Absolutely. Wow.
That's awesome. Kenny, I would love to have you stick around here. We got a couple more segments to do before we wrap up. Got some questions that people sent in. We'll have answer here in just a bit. But first, Dom, to the news and notes of the top headlines around the sport. Let's kind of go rapid fire. There's so much to get to one by one. Start out with some rule changes, right?
We'll get to the rule changes in a second, but before, it's just what the doctor ordered, guys. Just remember that Let's Go Racing is partnered with Olipop Beverages. Olipop Beverages are loaded with prebiotics, botanicals, and plant fiber, and you can get 15% off your order at olipop.com by using the code Let's Go 15 or David Starr. And David, I know you'd like this flavor. Competes with An unnamed competitor, right? Tastes exactly like it. Really, really good stuff. I know David's had some there on hand as well. On to our news and notes. Rapid fire this week. NASCAR announced some rule changes on Tuesday, January 31st, that will impact how we see some racing going on in the 2023 season. Among some of those changes include the elimination of stage cautions at some of the road course races. Now, that rule will not apply at some of the standalone truck and Xfinity road course races, but we'll see that in the Cup Series. A lot of this data came from fan council data, and NASCAR wanted to implement some changes moving forward this year. Also related to competition news, you will no longer see a crew chief get suspended for 4 races for loose wheels that come off in races. However, you will see 2 crew members out for 2 races, and depending if that happens during a caution or a race, penalties within the race will happen for that.
Okay, and then also you have the playoff factor. If you no longer have to be in the top 30 to make the playoff with a win, and you can't rim ride like a Ross Chastain anymore either. Among the rule changes, that's officially been banned. Kenny, let's start with you. What do you think of these rule changes entering 2023?
Well, I'm like this. I'm like, okay, but I come in from an era where you just left things alone for a while. It seems to me, as much as I love NASCAR, I just wish I could sit down with them and go, why do you insist on always changing rules? Why can't we go from one year to the next? And I know what they're going to say. We're in this new era. We're trying to make everything better. Now, listen, I agree with the Ross Chastain deal. Because even Ross, when he got out of the car, I think it could have been after that or, somewhere within the next 3 days, he says, yeah, that was something that was not fun. He says, basically, he said something as, he abused himself. It was an enormous, when you look at the in-car camera, it could have been a concussion, slight one. I don't think yes, it's exciting. Let the drivers kill themselves if they want. Let them fly into the fence if they want, but that takes a lot of balls, and that could go bad. So I agree with that. As far as no stage racing in road course racing, I don't want to hear why, but I'm sure they just broke it down, and it just never ends. There'll be something new all the way up to the Daytona 500. So, it gives me good content. So for my YouTube show, NASCAR changing rules again.
Imagine that, David. What do you think about these changes?
I'm just kind of like Kenny. There's so many rule changes so often. It'd just be nice if we could run 3 or 4 years and just keep it consistent. It's just, just last year there was rule change this year. It's just, I just wish they could find a common set of just rules and let's just stand by it and keep racing, and so I just not real sure why this constant. I understand it, but too many rule changes every year. We need to start being consistent and keep the same ones. On the Ross Chastain thing, I knew something was coming. I didn't know they was going to, mandate it. They're not mandate it, but, I don't know. I just, all the rule changes to me, it's just, it's hard to keep up with all of it. I think it confuses the fans and I didn't think anything was wrong with the way it was, so,
Sure.
The Ross Chastain, I understand, it's a safety hazard, not only for the drivers, for the competitors and, and possibly for the fans, so I don't think that's a bad rule change right there.
Yeah. Don, plenty more to get to.
Plenty more to get to. Let's go to some driver news. So looking at 2023, Kenny was mentioning earlier in the show how he used to really put it all to try to make the Daytona 500, but there's one driver who's going to get to make his Cup Series debut in a guaranteed spot. Riley Herbst will be making his Daytona 500 debut, racing for Rick Ware Racing's number 15 entry in the Daytona 500 with sponsorship from Sunny Delight. That deal got announced on Tuesday, January 31st. Riley Herbst, a staple in the Xfinity Series, one of David's competitors the last few years, will make that jump to the Cup Series And speaking of driver news, some staple names in the Cup Series, some past and present drivers. Bobby Labonte, Ryan Newman, and Brad Keselowski will all partake in the SRX Series full-time, as well as Hailie Deegan in the NASCAR Truck Series.
Isn't that incredible? And that was part of the move of moving to Thursday, was to allow potential opportunity for that. Kenny, ESPN says that this is their way of bringing back Thursday Night Thunder, SRX, with some big names here. Now we got to see you out there, Kenny.
I love the SRX series. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It has really helped local short track racing out. Here's the way I look at that. Winston, RJR, Winston, the cigarettes back in the day, they paid for everything. And, all the local short tracks had a Winston sign. They paid for the billboards. So Winston would go to Lakeside, Kansas. They would go to Topeka, Kansas. They'd go all over the United States, and they would pay for a signage, showing your top 5 at your racetrack. And you won the Winston Championship, and it was a big deal. And when Winston quit, when they got out of the sport, they quit doing it. And I feel like SRX is kind of a way to shine the spotlights in a big way on local short track racing, because to me, it's not so much about the SRX series or the cars themselves going to that local racetrack. It's like, okay, hey, we're going to have Hailie Deegan. We're going to have Ryan Newman. We're going to have Helio Castroneves. We're going to have these world-class race car drivers, IndyCar drivers, stock car drivers. And oh, by the way, it's on national TV, and they're coming to your little bitty old racetrack. And I think that just makes everybody go, finally, because so many people were dirt racing fans were upset with NASCAR. They fell out of love with them because, they felt like they forgot them for so many reasons. So I think the SRX series is fantastic. I enjoy it. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome for short track local racing.
Yeah. David, SRX was recently, there were some numbers thrown out there that even though it's just a 6-race package, that they're valued at about $50 million already, entering year 3. And this new TV deal with ESPN going on Thursday nights, the names that they're bringing in that Dominic just mentioned here, this should be a big year for SRX.
Man, it sounds like it, the third year, and with the TV package behind it, Thursday night prime time. I mean, that's you don't get much better than that. Just looking back on Thursday Night Thunder, back from Arizona, Tucson, wherever it was. I mean, that was a big deal. And man, local, all the racers couldn't wait for Thursday Night Thunder to happen, and I remember Greg Biffle, Greg Biffle came to NASCAR through that. And, and just listen to Kenny talk. I think the XRX series has been good for short track racing because, was it Five Flag Speedway there in Pensacola, Florida? I mean, that was a big
even
deal.
Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, that was, man, there's so many short track racers that race at all these racetracks across the country. And, over the years, our NASCAR's gotten so big that we stopped going to these short tracks. Used to go to, what was it, there in Newton, Iowa, not Newton,
Iowa Speedway.
Iowa Speedway, and now the Xfinity don't race there anymore. And then there was another one in, God dang it, little short track. But man, we used the Truck Series and Xfinity Series. We used to do 5-6 short tracks, And now over the years, we've gotten away from the grassroots of where we all came from. So what the SRX series is doing is going back to these short tracks around the country with all these, world superstars of NASCAR, IndyCar. And man, I just think it's just good for racing in general to go back to the grassroots. So I think everything about this SRX series is awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Speaking of TV with ESPN, Dominic, report out this week from Sports Business Journal that sounds like Fox and NBC want to extend their contracts with NASCAR, and we might have a streaming partner involved with NASCAR as well.
According to the Sports Business Journal, it sounds like Amazon might be the biggest heavy hitter to try and get the conversation rolling as far as streaming services and having some sort of NASCAR exclusive rights deal. The article also talks about it too, Tyler, how that may not be to NASCAR's liking because they want to have a broad reach as much as possible with all their teams and sponsors, etc. Right? But that's not to say Amazon couldn't come in with some sort of sweet deal. Fox and NBC have an exclusive window to start negotiating, and those sources within that article cite that it's going smooth right now. But that's not to say we could see some other partners throw their name in the hat. But it looks like Fox and NBC seem to be the biggest serious heavy hitters as of right now.
So David, I got a question for people of your age. No offense. If they're putting NASCAR races on Amazon Prime or streaming services, is that going to make things difficult for whether it's older fans or even sponsors, whatever it may be, to try to find NASCAR if they go away from some traditional television to do more streaming stuff? Or you think that could be a good thing to attract a younger audience like what F1's done with their Netflix series?
Man, I think there's some good and positives in all of it. Most older generation people don't really know how to stream anything, and but your new race fans, obviously everything's streaming, going to streaming. So I don't know, I really don't have an answer for that. I think it's good for the new fans that that we need new fans in the sport, but we definitely don't want to forget about the ones that have been here forever. You know what I mean? So that's a tough one, So I myself, I don't stream much of anything because I don't know how, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? If I can't, if a television can't record it, then I don't watch it, So I don't know, man. Just that's a hard one on me.
Kenny, we mentioned you worked in TV with Fox for a long time. They've been in this sport since 2001. NBC got a long relationship as well. What do you make of just where this seems to be headed, if still likely having Fox and NBC around and maybe Amazon part of the equation too?
So, like you said, I worked for Fox 15 years. I was in all the meetings. We saw it coming, 15 years ago. We knew that, Netflix and Hulu and, that was going to be the new younger generation. The days of channel 2, 4, and 5 at your local house, kind of having fun. The rabbit ear days are over. They're gone. And, the older generation, they talk about, I want to watch those races on free TV. Well, listen, those days are gone. They're totally gone. Everybody's got apps on their phones. Every dirt race I want to watch, I'm watching on Flow TV, Dirt Vision. That's the only way you'll watch all those races. But listen, I pay $150 a year for Flow TV, and I love it. I sit on my couch with my earbuds in. My wife watches what she wants to watch, and she goes, "You got dirt races tonight?" This is during January, and February when it's still snowing up here in St. Louis. So, streaming, that's not, saw that coming a long time ago. You're right, because my bosses and everybody, we talked about it. As far as the TV contract, I watched Steve Phelps say something that kind of caught my ear. He said that, and he was telling this to people that own stock at ISC. We all know it's NASCAR. NASCAR still owns International Speedway Corporation. You got SMI. All these people have stockholders. So Steve Phelps said last week, he said, we've had other proposals, and I thought, oh, that's business, but that's brave. So you got NBC, you have Fox, and they're going to renegotiate, but they ain't going to get the kind of money that they've been getting and here's why. Because when you look at the ratings, they're nowhere near close to what they used to be. Okay, we used to have 7 million people watch the Daytona 500. Now you got 4 million. It's very easy to see why they're not going to get as much. However, now we got players, plural. You got NBC, you got Fox, you might have Amazon. It's kind of like sponsoring race cars now. No, hardly anybody's got one sponsor. They got 10. And I see that's what NASCAR is doing the same way. Now, is NASCAR as strong as they used to be? No, but they're still incredibly viable. It's true. We used to put 250,000 people in Daytona 500. Now we're sold out at 100,000. But you still got to remember, count to 100,000. That's a lot of damn people. Sold out at Phoenix at 60,000. These are still enormous numbers. And, 30-something races. NASCAR is not as strong as they used to be, but they're still, I'd say, listen, to me, they're the second biggest spectator sport, and that was per NBC. You have NFL, and then who's got the second most spectators? Maybe college football, but, NASCAR is, as bad as we want to talk about NASCAR, they're still strong. Are the numbers as big? No, but they're not going anywhere, and they're rebuilding, and there's a lot of stop and start along the way, but they're still the show, and they're not going anywhere. And you can see that by these TV companies. They want, we call it content. We got a TV and we need stuff to put in the TV. What can we buy to put in the TV? And that's why Netflix, Hulu, they make TV shows. Cost them a lot of money to make those TV shows. There are a lot of famous, shows, on all that streaming right now. It takes them millions of dollars to make those shows, but they make it up. And I think NASCAR is looking at that business model of, like you said, NBC, Fox, Amazon. You might have 3 or 4 different TV people, streaming or showing NASCAR.
Well, and according to the Sports Business Journal report, they were saying that NASCAR will probably see a slight increase from what they're making now, but that's going to be driven by competition of interest, not necessarily by Fox or NBC wanting to give them more money. But if they have to compete for said money, then the costs will probably go up. They'll get some increase of some sorts, but not a lot necessarily as far as that goes. We'll get to our Ask David segment. We'll get questions for Kenny and David coming up in just one moment. You may be asking, how do I get involved? Send questions in. You can submit questions to us each and every week on Facebook, Twitter, and by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. And let's go ahead and get to the inbox for our first questions on the show this week for Kenny Wallace. And Kenny, the first question in the inbox, this one, it comes from Richard. Richard wants to know, Kenny, what is your best story about your brother Rusty?
Oh man, let me see here. Hold on. Well, I one that drops. I got one that kind of comes to my mind. Everybody comes from somewhere. So when people start out, 9 out of 10 times they start out as nobody. They're somebody, but they're not famous. So one funny story about Rusty was we were racing at Bearfield Raceway in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They had a couple big shows up there. Well, the promoter wanted us to come up there a day early, and we was in the truck and trailer. Me, Paul Andrews, which was Alan Quickly's, me, Paul Andrews, and Rusty. So we go up there and we drive from TV station to TV station, like 2 or 3, with the truck and trailer. So we get back to the hotel, and this was way before the NASCAR days, but Rusty wanted to make it so bad that he was willing to promote himself. He knew. We got back to the hotel, we rushed into the room and he turned on the TV to watch. I watched this. Rusty turned on the TV to see himself on the Channel 5, 5 o'clock news, and the TV wouldn't come in clear. And as old Barry Dodson would say, bless his heart, he's gone now, but the bug fights were on. We couldn't get it. Rusty was so mad, he took that TV, picked it up, and just threw it against the wall in the hotel room. I'm like, it's just a story of somebody that wanted it so bad. We worked all day long, went to these 3 TV stations, and we ran back to the hotel room. Rusty wanted to see himself, damn it. He destroyed that TV because that's when the TV sat, this is back in the 80s. It's when the TV sat on the, furniture. He picked it up and tossed it.
So damn bugs were fighting. Couldn't get rid of the bugs.
Yeah, the bugs fighted.
God.
My goodness,
Wow.
that's a great story.
What a great story, man. What a great story. Hey, Kenny, Rusty needed freaking social media back then.
Man, I'll tell you what, that social media, it is the root of all evil. It has definitely not made the world a better place, but we are everybody is so addicted. Even if you're not on it, somehow you find your way in the middle of it. And boy, the Pope is on there. All the presidents. I mean, everybody that's anybody, largest companies in the world, they got to have presentation. Social media is here to stay, but boy, it sure has created chaos.
Got another question in the inbox. This one's from Twitter. Felice Goes Roar. That might be Dominic's wife, actually, sending this question.
Maybe.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe. Here it is, Kenny, from Dominic's wife, actually. What new hobby or hobbies have you picked up since you stopped racing in NASCAR?
Grandbabies, 4 of them. Yeah, I love them so much. They're just, there's an old joke. If I'd known grandbabies were going to be this good, I'd have skipped my kids. So, we got an 18 by 36 swimming pool. Me and Grammy spent a lot of money on a massive playground set. They're loving. They're not spoiled, but they're awesome kids. And, that's pretty much my hobby. And, we do what we got to do, to take care of the family. And, that's really it. I mean, I'm watching my St. Louis Cardinals and my Blues, but then grandbabies are my hobby.
Oh, and your YouTube page too, right? You've been racking up a big following on that. That's got to be a fun little hobby your side thing doing there too.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I guess you could say my hobby. I had a buddy talk me into the Kenny Wallace show on YouTube, and it is doing fantastic, and it's better than I could have ever thought. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Hell, I'm down on the Mexican border, and say, man, look at this, they're fighting, and I'm thinking I'm going to bring back world news, videos of me racing my dirt car, but in the end, my niche was sitting right where I'm sitting right now, and giving my opinion on NASCAR topics. It just, hell, I gave an opinion on why I said Carl Edwards left NASCAR with a broken heart. 550,000 views. I'm like, what in the world? Give my opinion on the Kenny Wallace show about Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace fighting. 400,000 views. And I'm like, I never saw that coming, but yeah, I guess that's a hobby.
So Herm, everybody wants to hear what you got to say, man. You've been there and done it, and they want to hear your opinion. It matters.
I think what it is, David, it's like me and you meeting up in a bar one night, and hey, Herm, I say to you, David, you want to have a beer? And it's like, and you go, man, what do you think about that NASCAR race? Same thing. It's the same thing, David.
Yeah.
Fans go, man, what do you think about them new rules?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
That's 500,000 people want to hear your opinion on it. It's amazing.
And
yours. That's great. Yeah. Guys, we're almost out of time, but I want to end on this. We actually have racing going on this week, believe it or not. The Clash, so much for an offseason, is going to be Sunday night, the bye week before the Super Bowl. Kenny, I just want to ask you here, what do you make of the Clash, and you excited about seeing this all unfold Sunday night? What's your thoughts?
First of all, listen, NASCAR's trying. They're trying. Is it the perfect racetrack? Hell no. Are they going to wreck? Hell yeah. But still, everybody that hates it, they're going to watch it. It's at nighttime. It's on I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, I know I'm going to watch it, because it's so awesome.
What about you, David? You looking forward to the Clash on Sunday?
Man, I'm looking forward to it. It wouldn't have been I don't think it's the perfect racetrack. It's going to be a lot of action. People going to be mad. They're going to be wrecking each other. But, man, I'm going to be tuned in like everybody else. And kind of like what Kenny said, I've heard a lot of negative comments from a lot of race fans and racers themselves. But they're going to be the first one sitting in front of that television with some popcorn watching it. I can assure you that. So, I think NASCAR is trying hard. You see the changes in our schedule. A lot of changes going on the last couple of years. NASCAR is trying to, they're trying to find a niche, bring on some new fans. And, some of it's working, some of it's not. But, I can assure you that all four of us are going to be glued to that television watching it. So it's going to be exciting, I'm sure.
Well, Dominic, what's interesting to me is, it's a true exhibition. There's going to be, probably over 4 million people watching on the big Fox network. We're not going to that track ever again this year. It is a truly one-off event, has no effect on points or anything like that, but it's still going to be must-see TV.
Oh, absolutely. It's the first NASCAR race of the calendar year, and there's so much hype around it. You see the advertisements during the football games, and they have a lot of star-studded people that are going to be out there in LA, and NASCAR thinking outside the box, trying something new. It's going to be the second year of it. And oh, by the way, it's under the lights this year. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Kenny, before we go, tell people where they can find you and check out what you're up to and the Kenny Wallace show and all that great stuff, man.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just, we're on all social medias, Twitter, Kenny_Wallace, just that simple. And then on Instagram, same thing, Kenny_Wallace or Kenny Wallace 36. You'll find me. Snapchat, Facebook is awesome. That's a big one. And of course, just go to YouTube. It's just Kenny Wallace, and we call it the Kenny Wallace Show. And yeah, thank you very much. And we have a good time with it. We always got content. There's a lot out there.
That's terrific. Real quick before we go, kind of go around the room. David, what's going on with you this week? I know you'll be watching the Clash Sunday, but like me, you're trying to survive this ice storm right now.
We're trying to survive this ice storm. Man, just trying to finish up some of my sponsor contracts and announce some news real quick and real soon. And, man, trying to get back to my shop. But, man, you know what we're dealing with here, ice and snow. And so, man, the race season starting right around the corner. And, man, I'm going to be glued to the television on Sunday evening watching the race and looking forward to the Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Dominic?
Be spending it with the family. We're going to be heading to Grants. We'll be celebrating some birthdays and just catching up with a lot of people. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're really happy to baptize our son this past week. So we're on cloud nine right now, man.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Kenny, what are you going to go on these next few days, man?
Man, you caught me at the right time. Our family vacation, all 12 of us, me and my wife, our 3 daughters, their husband, our 4 grandbabies, we're headed to Cabo. My brother Rusty's got a really nice resort that he owns down there. And so we're going to be down there, and we'll be watching the race on Sunday night too. And, it's kind of wild. It's like the year starts in February. So tomorrow's, I think the year starts.
Yes.
Kenny, does Rusty give you a nice discount at that resort?
He does. He is incredible. I leave a big ass tip because it's a wonderful place that he owns, and Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick, they all go down there and use it, and boy, it's just incredible. And Stephen Wallace, my nephew, says it best. He's Rusty's boy. He says, Uncle Kenny, you're gonna go down there, you're gonna pull up, and you're gonna go in that place, and you're gonna go, I cannot believe my brother owns this place. So we're excited to go down there and take it all in. And, the whole family needs it. I got great kids. They work hard for a living, and everybody's ready for a break. So we'll be headed down there Saturday.
Awesome. That's great. Guys, we're out of time. It's been a lot of fun. This show certainly flown by today. We'll be back again here with you next week and look back on the Clash and recap that and look ahead to Daytona, where we'll all be here in just a few weeks from now. As always, subscribe to the show New episodes out each and every Wednesday. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Hit the like button, and we certainly would appreciate that. And as always, check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, as well as by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. For David Starr, Dominic Aragon, and Kenny Wallace, I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.